I agonized over some of the things because people might still not be able to understand some of the things.
Yeah.
When the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour premiered in 1971, it was TV's hottest show. But behind the laughs and hits, a dark secret was tearing them apart. Now, the shocking truth emerges. Sonny's devastating betrayal, the contract that made Cher feel like a slave, and the Vegas hotel balcony where she almost ended it all. From secret affairs to stolen millions, this is the story that destroyed America's favorite couple. Sonny Bono was born Salvatore Philip Bono on February 16, 1935, in Detroit, Michigan. His parents, Santo and John Bono, were Sicilian immigrants. Their marriage had been arranged when Jean was only 14, and they argued often, sometimes in front of their children. In 1942, the family moved to Inglewood, California, hoping for a better life. Sonny's parents wanted him to be a lawyer or doctor, but he had no interest in school. He struggled with academics and eventually dropped out to chase something he truly loved: music. Even as a kid, Sonny was drawn to performing. His first time on stage was in a school play back in Detroit. When the family moved to California, he started playing music at school events. His father, who played the banjo and accordion, filled their home with music. That influence stuck with Sonny, and by his teenage years, he was writing songs and learning new instruments, including the conga drum. But making it in the music industry wasn't easy, and he had to take all kinds of jobs to survive. He worked as a truck driver, a waiter, a construction laborer, and even delivered meat while wearing a butcher's apron covered in blood. By the late 1950s, Sonny started getting real opportunities in music. He sold his first song at 16, and by 1957, landed a job at Specialty Records. His big break came when he got hired by Phil Spector at Phillies Records. Working alongside one of the biggest producers in the industry, Sonny learned how to write songs and produce records. He even helped create hits like Be My Baby by the Ronettes. But Sonny wasn't the type to keep his opinions to himself. He openly criticized Spector's production style for being too repetitive. That got him fired. Instead of backing down, Sonny decided to take a different path, one that led him straight to a young singer named Cher. Sherilyn Sarkeesian, later known to the world as Cher, was born on May 20th, 1946, in El Centro, California. Her childhood was unstable. Her father, John Sarkeesian, was a truck driver who struggled with gambling and drug addiction. He was barely around. Her mother, Georgia Holt, was an aspiring actress who married multiple times, trying to create some kind of stability for Cher and her half-sister, Jorgan. But money was always tight. At one point, Georgia was so desperate that she put Cher in a Catholic orphanage, hoping it would be better for her. She visited every day, waiting for the moment she could take her daughter back home. The family moved constantly, from California to Nevada and back again, as Georgia worked low-paying jobs while chasing acting roles. Even with all this instability, Cher showed signs of talent early on. By 5th grade, she was directing her school's production of Oklahoma, and even played male roles when the boys refused to participate. She had a deep voice that made her stand out. She idolized actresses like Audrey Hepburn and Marlene Dietrich, dreaming of fame, but struggled with self-doubt. She didn't see herself as beautiful, which made her question whether she could ever make it in Hollywood. High school was a struggle. Cher had undiagnosed dyslexia, which made learning difficult. At 16, she dropped out, convinced that school wasn't for her. She packed up and moved to Los Angeles, determined to break into show business. To survive, she worked as a dancer on the Sunset Strip, doing whatever she could to meet the right people. Then, in 1962, she met Sonny Bono. Sonny and Cher's first meeting happened in November 1962. Cher was 16. Sonny was 27. At the time, Sonny was working for Phil Spector, and Cher had just moved out of her mother's house. She was living with a friend, trying to find her way in the entertainment world. They met through mutual friends in the Los Angeles music scene. Sonny saw something in Cher that she didn't even see in herself. It wasn't just her voice. It was the way she carried herself, the raw star quality she had without even trying. He believed she could be something special, and he wanted to help her get there. He introduced Cher to Phil Spector, who let her sing backup on some of his biggest recordings. She provided vocals on Be My Baby by the Ronettes and You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' by the Righteous Brothers. It was a crash course in the music business, giving her experience in professional recording sessions. But before Cher had any real success, she ran into a major problem. She had nowhere to live. Her friend moved out, leaving her without a place to stay. That's when Sonny made her an offer. She could move into his apartment for free, but there was one condition. She had to be his housekeeper. At 16, with no money and no home, Cher agreed. She cooked, cleaned, and helped keep the apartment in order. She later admitted that she wasn't much of a cook, but Sonny didn't seem to mind. Their relationship wasn't romantic in the beginning. It was based on survival and ambition. As they spent more time together, their connection grew. They worked on music late into the night, pushing each other to improve. By late 1964, they started performing as a duo under the name Caesar and Cleo. That name didn't stick. In 1965, they rebranded as Sonny and Cher. Everything changed in 1965 when Sonny wrote I Got You Babe on a small $85 piano in his Laurel Canyon garage. He wanted to capture the spirit of young love and rebellion that defined the era. One night, he woke Cher up and played the song for her. She wasn't impressed. She thought it was nothing special. But Sonny was sure they had something. He worked on the production, using a technique inspired by Phil Spector's wall of sound, layering instruments to create a rich, full sound. Harold Batiste, a talented arranger, added a balalaika mandolin, giving the song its signature feel. When Sonny took the song to Atco Records, they weren't convinced it would be a hit. But he refused to give up. He personally delivered copies to radio stations, persuading DJs to play it. His determination paid off. On August 14, 1965, I Got You Babe reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It sold over 3 million copies in just 3 weeks. In the UK, it knocked the Beatles' Help out of the top spot. Practically overnight, Sonny and Cher became international stars. They appeared on major TV shows like Ready, Steady, Go and Thank Your Lucky Stars, performing for audiences who couldn't get enough of them. But not everyone welcomed them with open arms. Their unique look, Sonny's fur vests and shaggy mod suits, Cher's long straight hair and bold eyeliner, stood out in a music industry dominated by clean-cut acts. Some critics dismissed them as a novelty. Clubs and restaurants even refused to let them in because of their bohemian style. But in England, they found a different reaction. British fans embraced their unisex fashion, and their popularity soared. During their UK tour, a staged publicity stunt made headlines when they were reportedly thrown out of London's Hilton Hotel for their outfits. Whether real or not, the story only made them more famous. Despite the criticism, Sonny and Cher pushed forward. Sonny carefully shaped their image, making sure they stayed true to themselves while also appealing to a mainstream audience. Over time, critics began to take them more seriously. They released more hits, including The Beat Goes On in 1967, proving they weren't just a one-hit wonder. Beyond music, they became cultural icons. Their songs captured the spirit of the 1960s, a time of social change and rebellion. Cher's daring fashion choices set trends, while Sonny's easygoing persona challenged traditional ideas of masculinity. They weren't just musicians, they represented something bigger. By 1967, Sonny and Cher had sold over 40 million records worldwide. But fame doesn't last forever. Music was changing. Psychedelic rock was taking over, and their folk pop sound started to feel outdated. Albums like Good Times struggled to make an impact. By 1968, they were no longer selling out arenas. Instead, they were playing in small clubs, a drastic change from their peak just a few years earlier. At first, they kept the focus on music. But as they performed night after night, something unexpected happened. Cher's natural wit started taking over. She began throwing sharp one-liners at Sonny between songs. He played along, acting like the clueless husband, letting her jokes land at his expense. It was the kind of back and forth that reminded people of old-school comedy duos, but it felt fresh and modern. Audiences loved it. They came for the music but stayed for the laughter. Word spread fast. That shift in their act led to an opportunity they never saw coming. In the early 1970s, CBS programming chief Fred Silverman saw them perform. He had already noticed their chemistry while they guest-hosted The Merv Griffin Show, but seeing them live convinced him they belonged on television. At the time, this was a huge risk. Variety shows were already flooding the airwaves, and many were failing. Sonny and Cher's careers weren't in great shape either. Cher had tried acting, but her first film, Chastity, flopped in 1969. Their music wasn't selling, and they were still climbing out of debt. But Silverman saw something different in them. He believed their mix of music and comedy could work. In August 1971, CBS aired the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour as a 6-episode summer replacement. The format was simple. It opened with their theme song leading into The Beat Goes On. Then came the jokes. Cher delivered sharp, sarcastic jabs. Sonny played the lovable fool. The rest of the show mixed musical performances with comedy sketches featuring stars like George Burns and the Jackson 5. And then there were Cher's costumes, extravagant designs by Bob Mackie that turned her into a fashion icon. The show was an instant hit. By January 1972, it was a permanent part of CBS's lineup and had already climbed into the top 10. Each episode followed a familiar rhythm. It opened with Sonny and Cher singing a duet, usually The Beat Goes On, before jumping into a round of light-hearted insults. Sonny played the goofy, well-meaning husband. Cher was the sharp, sarcastic wife who always had the upper hand. Their chemistry made the jokes feel natural, even when scripted. Comedy sketches added another layer of entertainment. Recurring segments like Mr. and Ms., Sonny's Pizza, and The Fortune Teller poked fun at everyday life. But the most memorable was Vamp, where Cher played an over-the-top femme fatale, showing off her talent for both comedy and glamour. The show also brought in big-name guests like the Jackson 5, Carol Burnett, Ronald Reagan, and Farrah Fawcett. These appearances kept things fresh and exciting, but no one made a bigger impact than Cher herself. Her outfits, designed by Bob Mackie, were bold, glamorous, and completely unique. They became just as famous as the show itself. The show's rise was unexpected, but once it found its audience, it was a hit. By its second season, it was consistently ranking in the top 20. Cher's one-liners became one of the show's signatures. She had a way of cutting Sonny down with quick, effortless humor. She made fun of his height, his intelligence, and his singing. But no matter how sharp her jokes were, it never felt cruel. One of her most famous lines came when Sonny was off-key during a performance. Without missing a beat, she said, "I can't be off-key because you're the only one singing." Audiences loved the way she flipped the usual husband and wife dynamic. Instead of being the passive sidekick, she was the one in control. In the early 1970s, this was rare. Women on TV were usually expected to play supportive roles. Cher broke that mold, making her an icon for many viewers. Music was just as important as comedy. Every episode ended with "I Got You Babe," often with their young daughter Chastity, now Chaz Bono, joining them on stage. It was a reminder that no matter how much they joked, they were still a family. But they didn't just stick to their own songs. They performed other hits like "The Beat Goes On," and even covered popular songs of the time, including Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. These performances weren't just a fun addition. They helped revive Sonny and Cher's music careers. By the early 1970s, their popularity as recording artists had faded, but the show introduced them to a new generation. It also gave Cher the perfect platform to launch her solo career. Songs she performed on the show, like "All I Ever Need Is You," became hits. Beyond its popularity, the show earned respect in the industry. Over its 3-year run, it received 15 Emmy nominations, winning one in 1972 for Outstanding Directing in a Comedy, Variety, or Music Series. Variety shows were highly competitive at the time, making this a major achievement. Part of the show's success came from its strong writing team, which included a young Steve Martin. The cast also featured future stars like Terry Garr and Murray Langston, who later became famous as the Unknown Comic. By the 3rd season of the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour in 1974, the cracks in Sonny and Cher's marriage were impossible to hide. On television, they still looked like the perfect team, smiling and joking in front of millions. But off-screen, their relationship was unraveling. Sonny Bono's infidelity had become a painful reality for Cher. Years later, she revealed how deeply it hurt, saying, "One woman, or even 5, was not enough for him." The betrayal was bad enough, but what made it worse was how much control Sonny had over her life. He managed nearly every decision, from her career to her wardrobe, even deciding who she could spend time with. For a long time, Cher accepted it, believing Sonny knew best. But over time, his control became unbearable. The real turning point came when Cher discovered something shocking. Sonny had structured their business under Cher Enterprises, a company where he owned 95% of the shares. Despite all the work she had put in, she had almost no financial control. That revelation changed everything. She had spent years as half of a duo, but now she saw her own potential. She wanted to be more than just Sonny's partner. The idea of stepping out on her own was terrifying. Sonny had made sure their contracts kept her tied to him, making it difficult to succeed without him. She later described feeling like a golden goose, valuable only for what she could produce. The pressure took a toll on her. At one point, she stood on a Las Vegas hotel balcony, feeling so trapped that she thought about jumping. But instead of giving up, she made a decision. She was going to take control of her life. For years, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour had been one of the highest-rated shows on television. It had debuted in 1971 and quickly became a staple of American entertainment. Every week, millions of fans tuned in to watch their comedy sketches and musical performances. On screen, they seemed inseparable. Behind the scenes, their marriage was in trouble. Cher later revealed that she had felt trapped for years. She said Sonny controlled every part of her life, both personally and professionally, making it nearly impossible for her to break free. The final episode of the show was filmed on January 21st, 1974. Just 1 month later, Sonny filed for divorce. What the public didn't know was that Cher had already asked CBS to cancel the show. She couldn't keep working with him under their existing contract. Sonny made the first legal move. In February 1974, he filed for separation before Cher could file for divorce. Some believed it was a way for him to control the narrative and protect his financial interests. What followed was a bitter legal battle over money, contracts, and custody of their daughter, Chastity, now known as Chaz Bono. The personal drama spilled into court, where Cher fought for her rights and her share of what they had built together. Fans were devastated. Cher accused Sonny of infidelity, saying he had promised to change but never did. Then came an even bigger revelation. She discovered that Cher Enterprises, the company that managed their earnings, was almost entirely controlled by Sonny. He owned 95%. The remaining 5% belonged to his lawyer. Despite her name being on the company, Cher had no financial stake in it at all. That betrayal hit hard. Then came the most shocking moment of all. As part of her legal fight, Cher accused Sonny of involuntary servitude. She argued that he had forced her into contracts that gave him complete control over her career and finances. She said these contracts made it impossible for her to take independent jobs without his approval. In court, she cited the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits slavery and forced labor. It was a stunning claim that enraged Sonny, but gave Cher the power to renegotiate her contracts and gain full control over her career. After their divorce in 1975, Sonny Bono and Cher went their separate ways, each trying to make it as a solo entertainer. Even before the split was official, Sonny launched the Sonny Comedy Review in September 1974. He kept much of the same comedy team from the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, hoping to recapture what made their show a hit. But without Cher, something was missing. The humor didn't land the same way, and audiences lost interest. Critics weren't impressed either. After just 13 episodes, the show was canceled, marking a major setback for Sonny, who struggled to succeed on his own. Cher had a much different experience. Her own variety show, Cher, premiered on February 16, 1975, just months after the divorce. Right from the start, it was clear she could command the stage on her own. The first episode featured big names like Elton John, Bette Midler, and Flip Wilson. With a mix of music, comedy, and elaborate Bob Mackie-designed costumes, the show became an instant hit. Critics praised Cher's energy and presence, saying she didn't just survive without Sonny, she thrived. The show even earned Emmy nominations. But despite its strong start, Cher ended after one season due to network changes and an unexpected turn of events. Another project with Sonny. In 1976, CBS brought them back together for the Sonny and Cher show. It was a strange idea, considering they were divorced, but curiosity brought viewers in at first. This time, though, the chemistry was different. Cher had already remarried rocker Gregg Allman, though she was in the process of divorcing him, and both she and Sonny had moved on in their personal and professional lives. What once felt natural now seemed awkward. The playful banter that made their old show a success now felt forced. Ratings dropped, and by 1977, the show was canceled. It was the last time they worked together on a regular basis, aside from a brief reunion on The Late Show with David Letterman in 1987. While Sonny struggled to find his footing, Cher's career skyrocketed. She built a music empire in the late 1970s and 1980s with hits like Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves, Half-Breed, and Dark Lady. But she wasn't just a singer, she became a serious actress. Her role in Silkwood, 1983, earned critical praise, and performances in Mask, 1985, and Moonstruck, 1987, made her a Hollywood star. When she won the Academy Award for Best Actress for Moonstruck, it was clear she had fully reinvented herself. And she didn't stop there. In 1998, she reshaped pop music with Believe, using auto-tune in a way no one had before. The song became a global hit, introducing what is now known as the Cher effect. Over the years, she became more than a performer. She became a cultural icon, known for her bold fashion, fearless attitude, and ability to stay relevant no matter the decade. Sonny took a completely different path. After struggling in entertainment, he made a surprising move into politics. In 1988, he was elected mayor of Palm Springs, California. His success in the role led to a bigger step, and in 1994, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives as a Republican representing California's 44th District. His political work focused on copyright reform and environmental conservation, and he remained in office until his unexpected death. Sonny Bono's life took a tragic turn on January 5, 1998. He was skiing at Heavenly Ski Resort in South Lake Tahoe when he lost control and crashed into a tree. The impact was fatal. He suffered severe head trauma and died instantly. Authorities called it a freak accident, something that could happen to even the most skilled skier. There were no drugs or alcohol involved. Just days earlier, Michael Kennedy, son of Robert F. Kennedy, had died in a similar skiing accident. Sonny's death only reinforced the hidden dangers of tree skiing. At 62, Bono had already lived several lives. First, as one half of the legendary duo Sonny and Cher. Then, as a successful politician. Since 1994, he had been serving as a Republican congressman for California's 44th District. His sudden death left his wife, Mary Whitaker Bono, and their two young children, Cesara and Chiana, devastated. In a surprising turn, Mary stepped up and took over his congressional seat, holding it for nearly 15 years. Sonny and Cher had long since gone their separate ways, but their history ran deep. At his funeral, Cher delivered a moving eulogy. She called him the most unforgettable character she had ever met. She spoke about their past, his quirks, and the way he had shaped her life. It was raw and emotional. For years, people had speculated about the nature of their relationship, and some even questioned why she was speaking at his funeral. But in that moment, there was no doubt. Whatever their differences, Sonny had meant the world to her. After their divorce in 1975, Cher reinvented herself in a way few artists ever could. She conquered both music and film. In the 1980s, she won an Academy Award for Moonstruck and starred in critically acclaimed films like Mask and The Witches of Eastwick. Then, in 1998, just months after Sonny's death, she did something no one saw coming. She released Believe. The song was revolutionary. It introduced auto-tune as a stylistic vocal effect and became a global sensation. It topped charts in 23 countries and sold over 10 million copies worldwide. At 52, Cher became the oldest female artist to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. She won a Grammy for Best Dance Recording, and Believe cemented her place as a pop icon. Even as the music industry changed, Cher refused to fade. In the 2000s, she embarked on massive farewell tours that grossed hundreds of millions. She took over Las Vegas with residencies that drew sold-out crowds. And she wasn't done yet. In 2018, she starred in Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, and released an ABBA tribute album. Decades after first stepping into the spotlight, she was still a force. But perhaps the most personal story of all is that of their child, Chaz Bono. Born Chastity Bono in 1969, Chaz came out as a lesbian in 1995, before publicly transitioning to male in 2009. His journey was documented in Becoming Chaz, an Emmy-nominated film that sparked national conversations about gender identity. Chaz became an outspoken advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and wrote books about his experiences. In 2011, he made history as the first openly transgender contestant on Dancing with the Stars. His participation was groundbreaking, but not without controversy. Conservative groups protested, but Chaz stood his ground. Over time, he became one of the most recognizable transgender voices in the media. Cher, always known for her fierce independence, initially struggled with Chaz's transition, but she came around. Today, she is one of his most vocal supporters, showing that even in the public eye, personal growth and unconditional love can prevail. Despite their messy divorce, Sonny and Cher never truly stopped being a part of each other's lives. After his death, Cher revealed something unexpected. Sonny had apologized to her before he passed, acknowledging the pain he had caused during their marriage. That moment allowed them to find closure and rebuild a friendship, even after years of tension. Their marriage had its share of struggles. By the end, Cher admitted it had become loveless. But she never stopped caring about him. He had taken a shy, awkward teenager and turned her into one of the biggest stars of her generation. They could make each other laugh, even when things were falling apart.